Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jai and I'm the artist behind Henna, and in today's video we are going to go over 7 steps to creating the perfect henna flower. This is actually the method that I use all the time to create my henna flowers, and even if the petals are a little bit different, the method remains the same. So if you're ready, let's get into step number 1. Alright, so the first step is to create a circle, and we're going to be doing it as a guideline just for all my henna beginners out there. Sometimes creating a perfect circle can be a little difficult. And then once you have the outline, you're going to go over it with more pressure to create a nice thick line. And then from here, once you meet at the top, we're going to swirl inwards. I really like using swirls as the centers for my florals. Something about it is just super classic and beautiful, and although you can leave it empty like this, I like to create a nice dot in the center. Of course you can make them smaller or bigger, but I like a nice big one and it's probably easier to see. So once you have this, you can create just through muscle memory the scallops, but if you are a beginner, sometimes it's nice to use a guideline. So again, you're just going to lightly trace outside this circle that you just created, because sometimes getting the scallops to be all the same height all the way around can be a little difficult in the beginning. So if you have kind of like a guide point, it will make making your scallops a lot easier. So now we're just going to go all the way around, and I do recommend to kind of learn how to do it by eye and not having to rely on guidelines. That will just make your work a little bit, flow better and faster. And sometimes doing the guidelines, it just makes it take a little bit longer than it should. But in the beginning, it is a good tip and trick. So as you can see, I'm kind of working on different sides of the swirl. So because I am right-handed, it feels a little bit nicer if I'm going from left to right. So in other words, I wouldn't really try to do my scallops going from right to left. That feels a little bit awkward, so left to right. So sometimes once I get to the top point, then I'll go again, so it feels more like it's left to right. Now, the petals, getting them perfectly distanced all the way around can be a little challenging in the beginning. So I like to use the center here. And we went over this in the video before this one, but I'll go over it again in case you are watching this without seeing any of my other videos. But as you can see, we're using the center and creating first 4 lines. And then I'm going to use the center again to kind of go right in between. And this will just make creating petals that are all the same size a lot easier. There we go. And like I mentioned, you can do different petal styles. There's so many different ones, but I'm going to do what I think is the easiest because I know there's a lot of henna beginners out there. And let's start from the bottom up. So you kind of dip in the center and dip back out. So to me, I think that's one of the easiest petals you can start with, and it's just so classic. You honestly can't go wrong. So here we go. And there's that. And I kind of want to make a video going over different shading techniques, but for this purpose, I'm going to show you a really simple way to kind of create some variation in your design to make it pop a little bit more. Because at this point, everything is kind of a little bit thick. So for the next step, we're going to inline these petals. So I usually like to do a lot of shading, but sometimes in the beginning that can be a little bit tough. So a really good option is to do an inline. So you basically just create the same shape inside the petal, and you want to make sure that it's a little bit thinner so it kind of gives still kind of the feel of it being a little bit more, like there's more depth there. because if you do all the same line width, it can be a little, you know, it just kind of blends and melds all together in my opinion. But yes, here we go. And at this point, you know, it's still looking not fully complete, so in order to make it look well-rounded, I'm going to add a really luscious dot in there. Personally, I love dots. I feel like you can never go wrong with them. If all else fails, add some dots and honestly takes your designs to the next level. So that is basically it, and from here, you know, you can add swirls, vines, you can do another flower on side of it. There's so many things you can do, but this is basically my 7 steps to creating the perfect henna flower. Alright, so now that you have that down, I want to show you some different petal variations that you can use to really spice up your design work. So, first I'm going to start by draping a line. And the first petal variation is one of my favorites. And so it's kind of like the one we went over in last video, but it kind of has a slight hump right in the center there, so it's kind of the opposite of the one we just did. The next is a little bit more of like a lotus petal, you could say. This one I really love as well. But you can also do something similar, but just accentuate the top to create more of this pointed petal. This is really good when you're doing mandalas, is one of my favorites. And then of course we have the one that we just did, but you can do not as deep down either. You can kind of make it a little bit less curved on the inside. And then this one is really fun. You kind of do a little dip and then you do a super small point like this, and then you will just do the dip on the other side. And you can also do something similar to this but make it a little bit thinner, and this is very reminiscent of sunflower petals, which is really nice. And I'll just go ahead and extend that just a little bit. My last one that I will show you is a fun one. So it's kind of like this one, but it's a little bit more off to the side. And then you just curve slightly inwards, like that. So these are all some really great petals that you could do. Same concept, you know, just switch out the petal that we did for one of these, and you can create so many different looks with just all these different petals right here. Same method, but just change up the petal and it will look like a completely different design. Alright, that was my 7 steps to creating the perfect henna flower. I trust you found it helpful. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. Subscribe for more tutorials, and I'll see you guys in the next one.